Justin. Please go ahead.
Justin Dung, freedonation.com. Kyle, thanks for doing this. I'm curious where negotiations stand with Steve Lawler and if you anticipate him re-signing before.
Yeah, they're going. I mean, this will be there'll be a lot of answers like that. Ongoing conversations right now for the guys that aren't signed. We've talked, and we'll see. Honestly, I think there'll be more information closer to free agency, guys. Like of the guys we haven't signed, the standard response is going to be, yeah, we're talking. We'll see where it goes, but as of now, we're nothing confirmed. That's for sure.
He knows a couple of guys that have recently been hired in key roles in BC, Buck Pierce and Ryan Rigmaiden. Are you worried that the Lions could make a play for Kenny?
No, well, I mean, I think everybody would make a play for Kenny if he's available, whether the guys know him or not. He's an explosive player, and when he's on the field, he makes big plays. So I don't know that I know that they know him intimately and have worked with him, but I don't know that you need that relationship to make a run at Kenny.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Next up, we're going to go to Frank Stanici. Frank, please go ahead.
Hey, Kyle. Happy New Year. With the way the Grey Cup went last year, I think it's fair to say that being able to judge the players you had under that pressure might have been a little handicapped by the circumstances that you found yourself in that game. How do you move forward, and how do you think about your team in improving it? Does it affect it at all?
Sorry, I'm not following. So
a lot of times we reporters hear about there are players that play under pressure and they do a great job when it really, really, really matters, right? You had a handicap in that game that I don't think was fair to the players to give them a chance to show what they could do. How does that affect how you think and who you keep and how you value certain players under that circumstance? Can you see past the problem and handicap that you had with a quarterback who was hurt, so the team really didn't get to show what they could do?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that I'm sorry to process all of that. I think, as we plan for next year, I don't know that the injury to Zach in the Grey Cup, I don't know changes too terribly much of our planning moving forward for this year. It feels just like, feels like every other year at this time, whether we win the Grey Cup, lose the Grey Cup, we're focusing on putting the best roster together next year. So I don't, there hasn't been a whole lot of talk about that specific game. It's more, you evaluate the whole year. And of course, how do we improve? What do we want to look like next year at every position? More so than just what happened in that one game.
So the whole year that they played is more important than that game. That game doesn't have as much value as maybe some of us think it does. That's all. I just wanted your opinion on it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think when you look at the way last year went, where it started off slow, and that group of guys rebounded and went on a heck of a run, and won the West again and got us to the Grey Cup, and didn't go the way we wanted. But it's when you evaluate a season, it's based on the whole season, not just the way that last game went.
Thank you,
Frank. Thank you for that. Next, we'll go to Josh Fraysam. Josh, please go ahead.
Hey, Kyle. You had said during the end of season press conference that you thought this would be kind of an interesting off season, just with the staff changes that you're kind of expecting and things of that nature. Just curious how you've kind of found it so far in your negotiations and the way things have kind of shaken out so far.
Yeah, I guess it did start, with the first time in years we've had changes to our scouting department. So that was an interesting process, interviewing guys and putting a group together. So, and it was good. It was almost like a reset. We're talking, we've been running the way we've been running for so many years. It was a nice reset organizationally. When, we had meetings with the staff, couple weeks ago, and it went right from the beginning levels of expense reports and budgeting and all the business cards. So it was actually refreshing reset for us to you go back to square one and build it up. How your grading system, your Canadian, your US. So it was I said it was very good, I think, organizationally for me to go through this with the new staff, to revisit the way we do everything and get them on board with the way we operate.
Mhm. Mike had some thoughts on it yesterday, but I am curious to hear yours. Like, have you found that not having an offensive coordinator in place just at this point has affected whether or not players kind of want to re-up?
No, I find the most important thing with players wanting to re-up is the value of their contracts. It would be through so far this year, I would say. So no one's really asked about that. They ask about the dollar value.
Okay. Just one last one from me here. I know that there's still 4 weeks to go here to keep your guys kind of in-house, but are you anticipating, just with where you're at, how many guys are left? Like, are you anticipating the same kind of continuity that you guys have had over the past few years, or are you preparing to be maybe a bit more active in free agency this year?
Yeah, I do anticipate us. You saw it with signing Dylan uh, this week that I think we'll augment a piece here or there. I think more so than other years, where we've been very stagnant, and I don't know that we've done much in free agency. So I anticipate us, and there's a bunch of variables. We've got some money set aside for some pieces still, and depending on how those shake down, we'll have to pivot. So it's very fluid once you get to this time of year with allocating funds and how those funds are spent, and if somebody doesn't want them, what's the next plan and the next plan, et cetera.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Next, we'll go to John Hodge. John, please go ahead.
John Hodge, 3downnation.com. Thanks for doing this, Kyle. You talked a little bit about Kenny Lawler. I'm curious, do you think it's realistic to potentially get Kenny and Dalton Schoen back?
Well, I guess anything can happen. I mean, we went through this last year, John, if you recall, where right up into the last minute, as I just mentioned, you have funds allocated for different spots, and sometimes things change quickly. And last year, it didn't seem possible that I believe it was Brady and Dalton, and and then right at the minute, Jamarcus went to Sask and freed up some money. So it's tough to say what's going to happen over the next few weeks. So anything can happen, I guess, John.
I guess pose a similar question. Tyrell Ford is pursuing potential NFL opportunities. Him and Evan Holm would presumably be up for large raises, and DB's not a position where you have traditionally allocated a ton of cap. Do you think it's possible to get Tyrell and Evan back?
Yeah, it's interesting because we had good. I believe our role, and this was good from the meetings where JY, our D coordinator Jordan, he went through to the new guys the philosophy and what's important to him, and each coordinator has had views of how they envision the ideal roster, and it was very insightful from Jordan of the guys he liked and why he wanted them. So and he's a back end guy, so the utmost important for the coverage, and you saw it last year where we played a lot of 3-man rush and dropped a lot of guys into coverage, and that's had a lot of success for us. Back to the Tyrell, yeah, my understanding is that they're going to explore all NFL opportunities right to the end. So that's probably not going to. He's not even looking to talk CFL offers. I spoke with his agent, and they just want to focus on NFL opportunities right now. And then I mean, wish him the best of luck if he can get into an NFL camp. That would be great for him. If he doesn't, then he's clearly going to be a highly sought after player.
Last one for me. Liam Dobson is coming off his first year as a starter, rookie deal, presumably up for a big raise. Do you see the team bringing him back, or do you see potentially a Gabe Wallace or a Tui Ellie ready to take over that role?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've spoke with his agent, and they're they want to see John, the offensive line market for Canadians it's it's pretty high for some of these guys. And Liam was an all-star and did very well as a starter. So his agent, rightfully so, is expecting you know, a very big raise, and he's part of that interesting puzzle of how to make it all work.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. We do appear to have a number of questions currently queued up, so I'll ask that you please limit yourselves to one question and one follow-up. Next off, we'll move to Jeff Hamilton. Jeff, please go ahead.
Okay, Kyle, I guess we're going to do something different. Then I'm going to ask you two-part questions.
Okay.
So just to kind of not re-ask what John said, but signing Dylan Mitchell wasn't a small signing for you guys. You know, he's a young player, but he's established in this career. So I doubt he was, necessarily a bargain bin pickup. So I'm wondering if there's a world that you can have Kenny Lawler, Dalton Schoen, and Dylan Mitchell, and an understanding that, yes, you were able to kind of accomplish, the Dalton Schoen and Brady Oliveira. But I'm wondering also with receivers, if it makes sense to spend so much money on receivers, whether it's spending a high upwards of $200,000 on one guy or several money on three guys, if that's a recipe for success in this league.
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's believe me, we had long talks about that. And the Dylan one is when a good player becomes available, everybody kicks the tires on it, and in the price point, it just seemed like a no-brainer to protect ourselves, because we're not exactly sure how everything else is going to go. So securing a very good asset at a reasonable price was the logic behind that. And as I said, we've got some big dollar values allocated to certain players that I'm not sure how it's going to play out, and we'll have to be ready to move from plan A to plan B to plan C, depending on who takes the money or what we think is a reasonable offer, or the agents don't think it's reasonable, the allocation that we have.
My follow-up, when you do your accounting, by my count, you have Kenny Lawler, who's a high-paid player. You have Dalton Schoen, who's a high-paid player. You have Liam Dobson, who's a high-paid player. And you have Tyrell Ford, who's a high-paid player. And it just sounds like if you were to give them close to everything that they wanted, that not all four of those guys would be back. I want to focus on Dobson and Tyrell Ford. Those two seem like, particularly Ford, seems like a massive ratio breaker. Not a lot of guys play his position, obviously, with his passport. If you can't sign Dobson, does that put more pressure on signing Tyrell Ford and vice versa? Otherwise, how do you configure? I know you guys have started a lot of Canadians. How do you configure your ratio playing out next year based on those two guys?
Yeah, we're fairly comfortable to have these decisions. I mean, we've started 3, 5, 6. We started 9 Canadians last year.
Yes.
So we do have some room if something doesn't go our way to potentially drop down to 8, drop down to 7, something like that. So the way we've been built, Jeff, over the last few years, it does allow some ratio flexibility if you can't make it all work financially, that you're not hamstrung, tied to have to pay to get your 7th Canadian starter in the building, because I think we're already there.
Yeah, right on. Thanks, Al.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Next, we'll go to Ed Tate. Ed, please proceed.
Hey, Kyle, how are you?
I'm good, Ed. You?
Great. We saw last year that sort of the value in some change with the roster, with some of the new guys that came in. So at this time of year, how do you balance, one, to run it back with what you saw the new guys were able to contribute last year?
Yeah, I think what last year proved is, it's not the way you start, it's the way, the team grows over. And we knew there would be some adjustments. We talked about this where we were young and we're playing new guys. And then there was a few injuries, which made us to play even more new guys. So by the end of the year, some of these young guys became major contributors, and you sit with your scouting department and you go over, well, if this doesn't work out, are we comfortable finding a first year player to play here, making sure that you're all in agreement and moving forward with that plan, and understanding that as I said, last year was the first year in a while where we relied so much on first year players to contribute, and organizationally we saw the growth throughout the year, and that, you know, we didn't come out of the gate like in prior years and sort of hang on for the whole year to get through. We had a growth throughout the year, and that was exciting for us to see. And we would expect the same next year if we have to add a couple young guys into the starting lineup.
Just one more then from me. With free agency getting closer, how do you approach it? Do you put sort of offers on the table right now for some guys and it's just first come, first serve, and then that impacts the pot that you've got available for other people? Or how do you approach it from this point forward?
Yeah, with the guys that we have, there's, it's understood that you're, we're out there putting offers out and putting feelers out, and there's a big difference between a 100% firm offer and we agree to this deal versus can we make this work? So it's commonplace to, I mean, you have to, Ed, you have to have irons in the fire and make sure that plan A, B, and C and D are viable options. You certainly don't say we're not doing this, even if we don't think it's possible, because at the last minute something can turn and somebody else might take that money and you have to pivot back. So yeah, there's a lot, and agents and GMs are both equally understanding that sometimes a deal just falls through at the end for both sides, that when you get to free agency and if we had an offer in and the agent seemed it was pretty good, nothing verbally agreed upon though, and then a big offer comes in, there's no hard feelings, and vice versa. If we have a kind of a soft offer or an offer out and the agent and the players seem like it's okay, and then we change our mind before confirming to it, that's fairly commonplace.
Right on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ed. Final question will go to JC Abbott. JC, please proceed.
Hey, Kyle, JC Abbott, 3downnation.com. You mentioned for another question that it was a bit of an organizational reset, bringing new guys into the football ops department. I wonder what you get as the GM from having somebody on your staff like Brock Sunderland, who has done that job before.
Yeah, you know what? When we were piecing this together, JC, it was talking and putting the best team together, and for what we're looking for. I mean, Eric, we'll go through. Like Eric was a nice piece. He's done Canadian, he's done American, he's done ops. He's very well rounded. Brock's bread and butter is a U.S. scout, finding U.S. talent, ties in the NFL, UFL. So more so, I don't. It had nothing to do with him being a former general manager for this role, JC. It was his strong history of American scouting, and same with Jimmy, that we needed to make sure that our U.S. scouting with Danny was solid, and that's their main roles. And Eric will kind of be the swing guy where he's versatile and does a little bit of everything. So I think we put a good team together with a variety of skills.
Excellent. Thanks, Kyle.
Yep.
Thank you, JC. And Kyle, thank you for joining us today.
All right.